Who is Sai Baba?
You cannot answer that question. It's not answerable. Who would hear it? The mind will hear it. A mind can never reach that place. It's not within the capacity of the mind to know who Sai Baba is, or to know who you are, or for me to know who I am. He says, this is an ordinary body. This body was born, this body will die. I said, no, it's Swami, yours is a holy body. He said, not holy body, ordinary body. Bodies are born, bodies will die. He said, but has come with a very important message. That is what Baba is about. And then he sort of hits me on the chest. I don't want to
Go ahead.
do it on your microphone here. And he said, this Drucker body, you know, he calls me Drucker, this Drucker body is not important. It will also die. Not important. The Atma is what is important. Think only of Atma. And 10 days earlier, Swami had spoken to me and said, you give the Christmas talk. And I said, Swami, I don't know anything about Jesus. I'm not a Christian. What are you? I said, well, Swami, I was brought up in the Jewish tradition. He says, Jesus was 100% Jew, pucker Jew. He said, you talk on Jesus. I'm always aware of the dream. That's why I love movies. I'm aware that I'm watching a movie, but at the same time I have passion and I have an emotional response to everything that goes on, but I realize that it's all just a movie, and that's a stage. And there's a further stage in which you're not the actor, because you don't exist anymore. You never existed. All that exists is Satchidananda. Being never becomes anything. It doesn't take another form. There is no Sai Baba as some kind of a specialized being.
He says, don't follow this form.
Forget the world, remember God, never fear death. I mean, that's one of Swami's many mantras. Swami said, stay? How long would you stay? I could even stay till Christmas. Oh, so long? What would you do? Swami, I can teach physical education. He said, very, very good. And he calls over the principal of the college and he says, new physics teacher. Not physics, physical. He said, no, physics. You teach physics.
But as a physicist, you could certainly teach physics.
But I hadn't touched physics for 25 years.
From high atop his perch over Florida's Emerald Coast, Al Drucker, for many years a high-ranking foot soldier for Indian holy man Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Al and Yanni Drucker favor this enthralling part of the world during the winter months. And as illusions go, who can beat it? But Al's principal endeavor, being, not becoming, Atma, the higher self. Welcome to Souljourns. This interview was recorded in Seagrove, Florida in March 2012.
Who is Sai Baba?
Who is Sai Baba? Well, the last time you asked me, I said, I am Sai Baba, but I wouldn't be able to say that today.
Why not?
I cannot, you cannot answer that question. It's not answerable. Who would hear it? The mind will hear it. A mind can never reach that place. It's not within the capacity of the mind to know who Sai Baba is, or to know who you are, or for me to know who I am. This is not the tool is not adequate.
Earlier we were talking about those people who walk among us, who do taste, sip the nectar of realization, self-realization, enlightenment. Would you not then have at least a clearer understanding of who Sai Baba is at that point, at that intersection?
I'll give you an answer. He's Satchidananda. He is being, pure being. He is all awareness. And he is Ananda. Ananda both means bliss and love. You know, he's pure that. But if you ask me who is Sai Baba, I don't know who Sai Baba is. Sai Baba is some, is a form of of a great guru that lived in India and will live again in another incarnation. And it was a lot of fun. And is a great teacher, and he's all those things, and none of those things have any true meaning. The only meaning is to discover that which can never be spoken of. It cannot be spoken of. It's not within the, it's just not there. It's something you can taste in your mouth. It's like some really fine ice cream in your mouth, you know, and it's the aftertaste or the aroma of some wonderful...
Sitting in that room with the cardiologist trying to revive you, you've had this taste of being on the other side.
Yeah.
Just use that euphemism.
Yeah, yeah.
Why would you still want to be here? Why are you still here? What is your life's purpose?
I haven't the slightest idea. I don't have anything to say about this life. I'm not in charge of this life.
What are you learning today or imparting to others today that makes you think this might be the reason why he wants you to hang around?
Forget the world, remember God, never fear death. I mean, that's one of Swami's many mantras. Another one is, I am God, I'm in no way different from God. You know, he says the avatar doesn't give mantra, but there it is, you know.
One and only mantra.
Yeah. And so, I don't even feel that I have a dharma that still needs to be expressed, that I still have doings to do. Whatever gets sent, you know, it's all one continuum. It's just it doesn't have that specialness of this particular person. Sure, this one has had a remarkable history with Baba. Well, that's what's been given, and and to the extent that I'm a guy sitting here talking, I'm deeply, deeply grateful for it all. But I don't for a moment believe that this has anything to do with truth.
Lead us through that. Perhaps one of our last little opportunities to discuss something.
Oh, we never got around to the Jeep. That'll have to
don't
be another
time. No, don't want to forget the Jeep. I wanted to ask you, though, if one of our goals as we're learning to identify who we really are is to live in that level called equanimity, which is what I would call above peace and joy, above pain and remorse, above guilt and sin.
That's helpful.
You've been given so much of each, of all those.
Yes.
Is your temptation to go inward more, to shed tears of joy about the life's blessings you've experienced? Or is there a way you can tell us about the destination beyond that goal?
I have to tell you, when I talk about these things, or like I tell you these stories or these experiences, I'm really talking about a remembered person who I'm not very strongly identified with at all. I mean, it's true that that in some kind of a strange way I'm connected with it, but
that's probably as it's supposed to be, I would think. Not
well. I don't know anything about any teachings. I only know what comes forth from at this point, from my direct experience. It's very, very difficult to talk about because I'm saying my direct experience, and I don't believe there is a my. You know,
well,
I don't have an experience of a my.
Why don't you omit that word and continue with what you're saying through experience?
Yeah, but it sounds funny because we're talking really mind to mind, and you're sitting there and I'm sitting here, and we're living this illusion of this particular dream. But well, anything you do in the dream is of no value to the one in which a dream has come and from which a dream leaves. Anything that comes and goes is not real. And so we can carry on like this and be teachers, but teaching is a joke. You can't teach anything.
I've heard you say these things before, and I take note of them as seriously as I know how to, and I try to conclude what the meaning of these words are. And it seems to be yet another way of helping oneself to awaken, just to awaken to this.
Yes, and that's all right. That's an okay thing to do. And anything, in other words, it's a dream of awakening. It's a dream of awakening.
But still a dream.
Still a dream.
Because you're already awake, the real...
Of course. Yeah. But, I mean, it's not you're awake. Awakening is what is. Mm-hmm. I mean, there is...
The awakening that you're a part of, that you are.
Well, see, you want to assign a subject to that object, which is, it doesn't work like that. All there is Satchidananda. Mm-hmm. That is all there is. There is nothing else ever. Nothing else ever. Okay? That's what is. But in some inexplicable way, this nama and rupa, this name and form, appears to stick to it. And so there now is a form, and there now is a time when it comes and a time when it will leave, and a place where, there's time and space now, where these things have, and a story will unfold, just like the story unfolds on the screen over there. It's just a story. And in that story, a lot of things can happen. And one of the things can happen is sadhana. You can make an effort to turn this dream into a holy experience for yourself. Huh? But it's all in the dream. It has no relationship to truth. It is, however, a dream of awakening. And that's grace. That's been given. What's been given to you is that you're in a dream of awakening. You didn't make it up. It isn't by your efforts that it got there. But in that dream, there will be you making every effort to get enlightened or awakened, mm-hmm. or realized, or whatever the words are. And that's how this dream will play itself out. And it will play itself out correctly. But the dream has no effect on the truth.
I think I pulled your chain with that one, which seems to be key, is your awareness of being in the dream of awakening.
Well, of course.
Because minus the awareness of that dream, you would be one seat back in this long bus.
Yeah, I'm always aware of the dream. That's why I love movies. I'm aware that I'm watching a movie, but at the same time, I have passion and I have an emotional response to everything that goes on. But I realize that it's all just a movie. It doesn't have to do with the stage on which it plays or the screen on which it plays. It's just a story playing out, and you're watching a story. You're watching the story on the other side of this camera right now.
I was also on that side for 44 years, reporting the news of the day, which became very clear to me about the time I got familiar with Baba and A Course in Miracles, that I was an actor in a drama that recycled itself about every 2 years, because we'd repeat stories, story ideas, if not identical stories, over and over again. So it's like a 2-for-1 cinema day at the Bijou on the Saturday.
And that's a stage. And there's a further stage, which you're not the actor, because you don't exist anymore. You never existed. All that exists is Satchidananda. That's all there ever is. Being is all there is. Yeah. Being never becomes anything. It doesn't take another form. There is no Sai Baba as some kind of a specialized being.
He says, don't follow this form. I mean, he says, don't put all your money on this form.
And he said to me in an I was sitting with him one Christmas morning, alone in the interview room, and I had asked him about, you probably don't have time for this, I asked him about Jesus and the Jesus' awakening.
I'll make time for it.
All right.
Go ahead, tell it.
Okay.
And he said to you?
Well, I'll just, I asked Swami, see, because I had to give a talk to the assemblage later that day, and it's Christmas Day. There's a meeting in the Purnachandra auditorium, and many devotees come from abroad. Also some non-devotees, they just want to have a holy Christmas, not the Western kind of Christmas. And so there'll be tens of thousands of people come for Christmas. And 10 days earlier, Swami had spoken to me and said, you give the Christmas talk. You talk before Swami talks, before Swami's discourse. And I said, Swami, that was the first time this happened for me. Later on, I think I did this for subsequent years, but that was the first time. And I said, Swami, I don't know anything about Jesus. I'm not a Christian. What are you? I said, well, Swami, I was brought up in the Jewish tradition. He says, Jesus was 100% Jew, pucker Jew. He said, you talk on Jesus. And so now I'm in the interview room with him, Christmas morning, and I'm just sitting there while Swami is doing his Christmas mail. He has huge bunches of letters on his little table, and a big, I think 2 bags full of letters, and somebody sets it out for him. And he goes through his mail. Interestingly, the way Swami goes through his mail is he takes a letter off one stack, holds it for a moment, and puts it on another stack. And he just goes through the stacks like that.
Sort of like
and
reading the names on the telegrams.
And well, he doesn't even look at them. I didn't even notice him looking at it. He just holds it for a moment and then puts it on another stack. And then there was still another stack that occasionally he'd put a letter on. And so I'm sitting at his feet, just touching his feet, and he's doing this, this business, and I asked him about it. He said, all these letters are my letters. I've written every one of these letters, and I just and so he just does that. But occasionally he says, there is a letter that has nothing to do with me. And that goes on that stack, and that goes to the post office, and they have a stamp, returned to sender unopened. Those are not my letters. And so I happened to see a letter from the reason I asked you what the doctor's name was, because there was this is long before this person, I believe, there was a doctor at the ashram little hospital that he had there, and she was in England doing some advanced studies, doing some program, and she wrote to Swami in English, and I could see her return address on the top of an envelope.
And he sent it away, sent it back.
And Swami hands me the letter, and he says, open it, and he dictates to me what she's saying. She says, dearest Bhagavan, I'm now finished with my studies in London, some London hospital, and I have relations in Wales, and I'm going off there, and then I will come back to the ashram, reporting what she's doing. And Swami is as I say, is dictating this to me,
And you're reading it as he's going
I'm
along.
reading it, and he says, these are all, I write all these letters. So when you give Swami a letter and he takes it, he's the one that wrote that letter. And he made it very clear in that experience, And so then I said, Swami, can I ask you some questions about Jesus? And he says, yes, he's still doing his mail, he's sort of, but ask. And so I said, what do you want me to say today? I'm giving a talk, what, and he told me some stories of Jesus. And one of those stories, I think I may have reported it on the last time when he came upon the dog.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, he told me that on that
But repeat it
particular
briefly
moment.
here, because people will not have seen that.
Well,
perhaps.
it's the story is that Jesus and his followers were walking along a road. Of course, in those days in the Galilee, they didn't have roads as we think of them. They're just a dirt path, you know. They were walking along, and Peter, Swami telling the story, says Simon Peter was up front, was ahead of them by some half a kilometer or something, and came upon the carcass of a dead dog that had been clearly had been out in the sun for days, and was just all the carrion birds and jackals had already picked on it, and at this point it was just sort of a stinking mess, and just worms, Swami said, you know, and so he wanted to save the master from having to be exposed, as Peter, exposed to this horrible sight, and so he runs back to redirect Jesus through the fields rather than along the road, so that he wouldn't have to pass by this awful smell of this carcass that's lying there. But Jesus wouldn't hear of it, and Jesus told everybody to come with him. And then when they got to this site, of course, everybody's holding their noses, you know, it's just so horrible. And Jesus bends down and he points down at the dog and he tells everybody to look, see what I see? And all they're seeing is this, you know, just bones sticking out and some bits of flesh, and it's horrible. He says, look at the perfect teeth on that dog. Look at the perfect teeth. He said, how much its master must have loved it for that dog to have teeth like that. And so apparently the dog must have been a runaway from home and ended up that way. But what Jesus saw was the perfection in that sight, and saw the love.
It's great
And
hearing the
that's-
second time.
And that, Swami said, that was the essence of Jesus and his teachings. He was teaching love, and this is what Jesus was about.
What a story to
And
lay
so
on
he
you
says,
at Christmas Day.
you tell that story.
Did
See,
you?
He told me that. Yes, I told it that afternoon. And then, and I said, well, Swami, what about Jesus on the cross? And I mentioned that there was this couple from England, Ronnie Lang and
Peggy Mason.
Peggy Mason, right, who had come, and they were Christians, and asked Baba about Jesus, and Swami said Jesus died on the cross as it's reported in the New Testament, and they took the body down and put it in the cave and rolled over the stone, and then like that. But then also, I'm trying to remember the couple from Hollywood, Janet Bach and Richard Bach, you know, came to him, and they were interested in making this video of the lost years of Jesus. And they asked Swami about it, and Swami said when Jesus came off the cross, he was still alive, and his devotees took him, and they used different herbs and brought him back to life, and then spirited him out of the country, and he came to Kashmir and taught there and died there.
Up there in Srinagar. Or
Yeah,
someplace.
wherever that place was. And so two different stories coming out of Swami's mouth. And I said, Swami, what really happened with Jesus? You know, like they're both from Swami. And Swami said, when Jesus was on the cross, he was not yet fully awakened. He had transformative, transcending experiences, and
He was not born an avatar. He was not realized from birth. He was through the process And on the cross is where his
on
awakening
the cross.
was still
and he
going
said
on.
it happened on the cross when these Roman soldiers were prodding him with their spears, you know, and when he cried out for water, giving him the vinegar, you know, and he still felt some resentments towards these, brutish soldiers who were tormenting him so much. And then Swami said to me, and then Jesus heard this voice of God saying, all are one, my dear son, be alike to everyone. And Swami said that at that moment, Jesus looked down into the eyes of this Roman soldier, and everything had transformed. He just looked into those eyes and he saw the soul of this being, and all he could see was love. And at that moment, Jesus says, now it is over. Now it is finished. And at that point, he left his body. Now this is, it's a new story. I hadn't heard this before, And I said, and Swami, and then what happened? Well, then Jesus was finished. The body was no longer important. They took down the body, they put it in the cave, and they rolled over the stone, just like they said. Swami was kind of not...
dismissive of it.
Yeah, was kind of dismissive of the whole thing, because the important thing was that Jesus came into his own realization of his own God truth, of love. And I said, and then 3 days later, they rolled away the stone and didn't find the body like that. Was it like that? He said, no, nothing like that. I said, Swami, Jesus didn't resurrect. He didn't come back into that body and was seen by others. No. I said, Swami, should I tell this? Because all of Christianity, this is Easter, it's the whole Easter story. It's so important. Swami said it was just in the minds of his devotees, and he did like this. They were imagining that. He said there was no further need. That body was done. Jesus is not a body. Bodies are not important. Swami, now he's no longer doing his mail. Now he's looking at me, and it's almost like I sort of threw a switch there.
Did you say, Swami, this is heresy, what you're talking about here?
He said, bodies are not important. He said, Rama, in the Ramayana, Valmiki wrote one story of Rama, and then Vashishta told a totally different story of Rama. Valmiki had Rama as a great prince, and Vashishta, when he told it, he said, you are the avatar, and he reported him as God. He said different things, but the important thing about the Ramayana is the Rama principle. What is the essence of that story? It's not about a body. The same of Krishna, the same of this Sai Baba body. He says, this is an ordinary body. This body was born, this body will die. I said, no, it's Swami, yours is a holy body. He said, not holy body, ordinary body. Bodies are born, bodies will die. He said, but has come with a very important message. That is what Baba is about. And then he sort of hits me on the chest. I don't want to
Go ahead.
Do it on your microphone here. And he said, this Drucker body, he calls me Drucker, this Drucker body is not important. It will also die. Not important. The Atma is what is important. Think only of Atma. Talk only of Atma. Return to Atma and stay there. Be that. And that's when he also said, Dust if you think, dust you are. God if you think, God you are. You are God. Now live it, be it.
Oh, great story.
And that
I'm almost fearful to ask.
that was my afternoon talk.
If you included that last part in your address.
No, I never told it anybody. This is the first time I've ever.
Oh my! I got a scoop. What do you know? I'm back to my old television news.
I don't
days.
know what.
I think those who are prepared and understanding how life is continually surprising them with a higher, more
New
evolved way of
insights,
looking,
new
will appreciate
realizations,
it,
yeah.
and those who don't will be left to learn the lesson that imparts to them. But how could somebody say this? I just love it. We have time for one last story, and you and Yanni telling me before the camera roll, having to do with Swami gallivanting around in his cool Jeep.
Oh, yes.
With petrol that came from a unique source. Could you tell us that story? In your presence, you witnessed this.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier that I would sit on the veranda for hours, long after everybody left, studying the homeopathy. You know, that was my opportunity to learn materia medica. And one time I was, this was around, 11:30 or so in the morning. Well, there's before this, this was also Christmas time. It was actually right after Christmas that this happened, but it wasn't that same year that of the story I just told. That particular Christmas, the Western devotees were given a chance to do some seva. Normally that's not encouraged at the ashram, but this time it was. And we were all to go out and spend a couple of hours on this big field that was, what is it called now, the big field? That's Hillsview Stadium. Well, in those days it was just a field with a lot of shrubs on it and rocks and all kinds of stuff, some garbage, and and our job was to clean the field. And so we would go in lines and pick things up. We had bags to put it in, and we'd spend an hour or two doing that. And then Swami would always come out, and a chair like the one you're sitting on that goes around. Mm-hmm. He would sit on the field for about 5 or 10 minutes, giving darshan, watching, while we pick up things. And then every day he'd give something away. He'd give away pens and little medallions and stuff. Just everybody gets a chance to be close to Swami. And then we'd go back to our sheds where we had our meetings. But for 10 days there was this picking up business on the field, and I think we might have finished about a quarter or a fifth of the field during that time. The day after Christmas we hear this sound in the ashram, and we hear these big heavy machines coming, and this is the Indian Army rolling in with these huge tractors, these tractors that are used for picking up tanks and moving them, and they go out there, and in half an hour or an hour, they just completely clean off the field, So this none of this picking had anything to do with our doings. It was a it was a gift given to those who chose to do some seva. Anyway, they cleaned the field, and then I'm trying to remember, Major General Mahadevan. He was a Sai devotee, and he was in charge of this this army. Well, I mean, he's much bigger than that, but certainly that battalion worked in his under his jurisdiction, and Mahadevan and Swami Mahadevan asked, "Is there anything else we could do?" And Swami said, "The Chitravati has been pretty much dry all these years, but there are some big storms coming, and put up some what do you don't call them dikes? What are these that hold floods back?
Yeah, barriers.
What are these? People have they fill up sandbags and whatever they're called. But just to make some emplacements like that, and particularly to protect the town of Puttaparthi. And so Mahadevan sent his crew out there onto the Chitravati, and they were pushing sand to create these, let's call them dikes, okay? These dikes. And so this particular morning, it was late morning, it was about 11:30, a jeep backed up onto the veranda at the mandir, and then Swami came out. Swami at that time was still living in the mandir upstairs, and he came out, and he got in the jeep in the front, and then he saw me sitting there, and he said, "Get in the jeep." And so I got in the back of the jeep, and then driving off, he saw another person who was quite prominent there at the ashram, Nasimurti, who was the warden at the, they called them wardens, the head guy at the boys' hostel.
In Vrindavan?
In Vrindavan. No, not in Vrindavan. This is in Puttaparthi. This is after the Sri Sathya Sai Institute had started, and it was at the boys' hostel where the boys lived.
Right.
And he was sort of in charge of them. And so he was there too, and he got in next to me, and we're driving off in the jeep. And on the way,
and Baba's driving.
No.
Oh, it's
this is Swami's driver is driving. I forget his name. He's the one that was murdered when these young assassins came to get Swami. And he got in the way. I'm trying to remember his name. No. Oh, Radha Krishna. Yes, it's Radha Krishna.
Okay.
Yes, Radha Krishna. And Radha Krishna is driving. And Baba is sitting next to him, and he says to Radha Krishna, who normally drives his limousine, he says to Radha Krishna, "Do you know how to drive this thing? Do you know how to go into we're going out in the on the sands to go into four-wheel drive?" And Radha Krishna sort of says, "I think so, Swami." And then Baba turns to us in the back, and he says, "I've been driving since this body was 15 or 14." And then he started telling the story of how he had this, some devotee had given him this ambassador with the top cut off. And Baba would, and he told that he would do the evening bhajan, and then he would do the arti. He would sing all the songs in the bhajan, and then people from the village would gather. His devotees in the village would gather around him for that, and then he would do the arti to a picture of the young Swami that was there, and then he said. Many days he would get into his car and he would drive to Madras. But he said, drive is not like you drive. This car would fly across the road because I'd first go to the Chitravati and put some water, take some water out and that into the tank.
Into the gas tank.
Into the gas tank.
The water.
Yes. He said, now, I don't know if he said at that time or previous time to that, this was still at the end of the war. You know, he's just a young man at that time. And so it was at the end of the war, and he said they had gas rations, and there were just enough coupons for him to get to Buckaputnam, which is down the road, you know.
Using gas.
Once a month, you know. And he said, I couldn't work with that. And so he would just put water from the Chitravati. He said it worked fine. And so he'd fly off to Madras and would walk in on his devotees there. And he said one time this old lady, I woke her up, it was after midnight, and I came, and she says, "Oh, Swami Bhagavan, I have nothing ready." He said, "Don't worry, it'll be." But she said, "I don't have any of the puja articles." And Swami said, "I just whistled out to the car, and these two devas came holding this huge silver platter, just filled with all kinds of fruit, out of season fruit, and asked her where to put it, and she directed them to a little puja room, you know, and they put it down. And who are these two? They are my angels, my devas.
And he had just materialized them on the spot.
They're always with me. They do everything I say. He said, and years later, many years later, the warden of the hostel, the same Nasimurti, accompanied, had heard, you know, he heard the story also, as I did. And so he accompanied Swami on a trip to Madras. And he asked Swami, should we go to see this old lady? She was still alive, and yes, go, I will also come. And they went into some back slummy area of Madras and found this house, and she was all ready for them. And then Swami said to her, show them the silver vessel on which all these fruit came then. And she brings out this big tray. It's a silver tray, and on it is this ornate, beautifully carved scene of Krishna and Arjuna and the chariot, and all the Pandavas and Kauravas lined up on both sides.
And Baba had told you this story about what he
told that
did.
Story, exactly.
And Madras is no
No, Baba,
it's far away. I mean, if he drove that far with his car, and I'm still stuck on how he flew in this
well,
car.
he said that's just how he, how he did it.
Yeah.
And so now we're out on the Chitravati, and these big tractors, you know, are pushing sand. And as soon as they see Swami in their jeep, they all come running out, these army guys, and they all get, you know, you get to
his blessings.
Put their hands into his feet and touch him. And it was a very lovely scene. And then Swami said, I'm going to Puttaparthi. We'll go on to Puttaparthi. Puttaparthi is further along the Chitravati. And we see an old man walking, and Swami has the driver drive alongside him and stop the jeep for a moment. And the man recognizes Swami. And Swami says, I taught him maths. We sat together in the school in Buckaputnam when he was in his grade school, you know.
Wow.
And Swami, and look at that old man. Can you imagine? We are the same age. Look at this, and look at that old man. You know, Swami was sort of showing off a little bit. And then a little bit further on, we saw a whole bunch of little kids, young boys for the most, I think they were all boys, maybe 10 or 12 of them, with their school books, you know, and they were obviously walking along the Chitravati back to Puttaparthi, and Swami told them all to climb in. And so now there were 10 kids, 12 kids, I imagine, all over us. I mean, there were 2 in the front and, on Swami, and about 5 in the back,
What
and
a
then a
delight.
couple sitting on the hood, you know. I mean, it was just fun. And then when we got close to Puttaparthi, Swami told the kids to get off, and he just kind of got himself all into the perfect bearing, you know, and then drive through Puttaparthi. And he says, this is the first time in 20 years that I've gone through Puttaparthi. 20 years, he never once went into Puttaparthi up to that time.
Wow.
And even and the people lined up along the way, and they were all, you know, they were fine. There was no, apparently there had been some problems prior to that time.
Al Drucker, I have a feeling if I let the camera be in play position, we could record stories endlessly
For
here.
8 hours at least.
And we will do that later. Wonderful stories today with you and with Yanni Drucker. And just thank you so much. It's been not
You're
just a trip,
more
not just the trip down memory lane. It's been
You're
an upliftment
certainly
for all of
welcome.
us.
Yes.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram to you. I've never talked about this, but it feels okay to
Well, you get
share that.
far enough in your Sai. Nope, just fine.